All right, President Biden and his administration have spoken out strongly against Florida's parental rights in education law that, among other things, prohibits instruction about sexuality and transgenderism to children in kindergarten through third grade. Now, you would think that this administration, given inflation at record highs, the war in Ukraine, and the instability literally around the globe, that they would have more important things to do than focus on indoctrinating children in kindergarten through third grade. But no, this is a priority for this administration. In fact, they have called Florida's law hateful, horrific, discriminatory, and a form of bullying, among other things. But back in the 1990s, then Senator Joe Biden voted for an amendment that was much closer being the, quote, "don't say gay" bill that critics of the Florida's new law claim it to be. And when asked about this last month, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki gave this non-answer answer.
In terms of his views and comments from 25 years ago, I think the most important question now is, why are Florida leaders deciding they need to discriminate against kids who are members of the LGBTQI community?
So what does the White House want us to forget about? Joining me now to discuss this and what it tells us, not only about Joe Biden, but about how far Democrats have shifted on issues like this, is Rachel Bovard, senior columnist at The Federalist and the senior director of policy at the Conservative Partnership Institute. She has served in various roles in both the House and the Senate on Capitol Hill. Rachel, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, you've written a piece about this, I guess it was earlier this month or late last month, in The Federalist. Tell us about then Senator Joe Biden's "don't say gay" moment and compare that to where he's at today.
It really is a remarkable transformation. So the piece that I wrote touches on a debate in the Senate that took place in 1994 surrounding the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which people may recall is the bill that still to this day funds a lot of the federal government's education activities. And as part of that debate, an amendment was offered by Senator Bob Smith, a Republican from New Hampshire at the time, which was far more explicit about what you could and couldn't say about homosexuality in the classroom. And I'm quoting here, the amendment said it would prohibit schools from receiving any funds for, quote, "encouraging or supporting homosexuality as a positive lifestyle alternative," end quote. So that is literally a "don't say gay" bill or an amendment that was offered here. And what's really remarkable too, and I tried to parse this a little bit in the piece, is that the debate that was held on the Senate floor, roughly 30 years ago, is so reflective of the debate we're having today. Bob Smith brought with him materials that were being passed out in schools, materials that were in school libraries. And he said, "I can't quote from these because they're too obscene. I bring senators to come look at them, but this is what's being instructed in your child's classroom." Very similar to the debate we're having today. However, the difference was that then Democrats agreed with the premise of the amendment. And you saw Senator Joe Biden go down and cast a vote in favor of this Smith-Helms amendment, which said, yeah, no instruction can take place here discussing homosexuality as a positive lifestyle alternative. For the Joe Biden of 1994, that was completely fine. Contrast that to today, where a much, much broader sort of gentler law from the state of Florida, which just says, hey, don't discuss gender identity with children in kindergarten through third grade, and also inform their parents, if they're discussing gender transition. That is hateful, when 30 years ago, a much, much more punitive form of that amendment was completely fine.
But this is not the only area, Rachel, that we see this. I don't know if I want to say hypocrisy. I'll be kind. Contrast. I mean, how many times did Joe Biden vote for the Hyde Amendment and not forcing Americans to fund abortion? Now his administration wants to codify this into law, Roe v. Wade, and force all Americans to pay for it.
I use the word transformation. We can say hypocrisy, although I think for, career politicians like Joe Biden, they're not shamed by the charge of hypocrisy. But Joe Biden has really undergone a transformation when it comes to cultural issues. This is someone who, as you point out, for his entire career supported the federal funding prohibition on abortion, and in the span of 6 months on the campaign trail reversed himself on a key question, has pushed against religious liberty, has pushed against, as we've seen, in favor of this transgender ideology sweeping the country. So this is someone who you could have considered at some point moderate or even conservative on a lot of these social and cultural concerns, who has swung completely to the left, been captured by this progressive wing of the Democratic Party on these cultural questions, and now actively seeks to overturn a lot of what I think many Americans thought was consensus around these issues.
Yeah, I think it's your piece is very enlightening. And folks, there's a link at the website, tonyperkins.com. I mean, we knew a lot of this stuff, that Biden was more moderate. He ran as a moderate. He was billed as the moderate, but he's done anything but govern as a moderate. I mean, he's been, but even when he was vice president, he was really to the left of Barack Obama. In many ways, he forced the Obama administration's hand on same-sex marriage. He came out before President Obama did on pushing that. But there is this underlying stream, if you will, that I think is really, it's the Democratic Party that has shifted so prominently on these issues. What is behind that? Has the left taken over the Democratic Party and these politicians just wanting to hold on to their careers or riding the party?
It's an interesting question, and I think it has very much to do with the takeover element that you just referenced, because I think on a lot of these, very, divisive cultural issues, there is sort of a consensus in America that even most moderate Democrats fall into, right? We may not agree on the granularity of, specific abortion policy, but most parents across the country want a say in their child's education. That doesn't seem to be a controversial view, except here in Washington, where it seems like this very, very loud minority within the Democratic Party. So I'm talking about not that big of a faction, but a very loud and a very aggressive faction has taken over the Democratic Party in Washington and is forcing these like transformative social views on a party where I would wager not a lot of their base actually supports. And I think this is going to be an interesting test question for the midterm elections. How many people respond to the Democrats' culture war from their own base? And I suspect that a lot of parents in the Democratic Party are scratching their heads saying, we can debate some of these, hot topics, but the fact that you want to bar me from knowing what's going on in my child's school, that's probably a bridge too far for most. So I do think it is this like nexus of a minority within the party that is just incredibly loud, and they have cowed a lot of the Democratic politicians into submission.
Now, Rachel, I've been around a tad bit longer than you have. I've been here about 20 years, and so I've watched a clear line of separation between the two parties. I recall sitting down, and having dinner with Blue Dog Democrats and talking about life issues, talking even about Second Amendment issues. They no longer exist. They've actually been exterminated by their own party. But the Republicans as well have actually become more conservative. We have more conservatives, and I know conservatives would say, well, they're not conservative enough, but we actually have seen in the last, really, 2018, after 2018, we no longer have any openly pro-abortion, pro-choice Republicans. We have a caucus in a conference in the Republicans that are all pro-life, at least they state that. Of course, we don't have any pro-life Democrats anymore, so the lines have clearly been separated. I don't know that there's any middle ground in politics anymore. I think elections have consequences, and as we see from the Biden administration, they're pushing their radical agenda once they gain power. And so if people aren't involved electing individuals who represent their values, they're going to be ruled by a set of values that run counter to what they believe in.
I think that is the reality that we're living in. And it's interesting to watch the left evolve on this question, because they were very much the party, who was like, well, live and let live. At some point, I guess they were like that. And now they are dramatically different. They are imposing, progressive values on everyone. It's you agree with them, or you, are a racist and a sexist and a bigot and whatever else they want to throw at you. So the battle lines have been drawn. And I think, for some, that's been some benefit to the right as well, as you point out. I think one of the things that the pro-life movement in Washington has done very well is they've made very clear the realities of abortion. And they've, made it very difficult for people to say, oh, there's a compromise here. Well, no, when you're talking about the life of a child, there is no compromise. And so I do think the battle lines are more clearly driven here. But it's interesting, as you mentioned, the fact that there used to be pro-life Democrats, and I think Bart Stupak was perhaps the last, and he was driven out by his own party. So
he was targeted in his primary by his
Democrats.
own party.
Yeah,
and of course, Rachel, we don't have to go far, and this is what I tell people all the time. Look, we shouldn't be surprised by this, quite frankly, because if you look at the party platforms, and I know a lot of people think that's just technical garbage that's just out there that nobody pays attention to, but when you look at the party platforms, these parties follow those platforms 75 to 80% of the time. And the Democrats have made very clear in their party platform where they stand on this issue. They are for forcing taxpayers to fund abortion. They're for redefining human sexuality. They're for trampling upon religious freedom in the name of this sexual libertarianism. So, I mean, it is it's very clear where they want to take America.
Even in my lifetime, if you think back to the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton saying, oh, abortion should be safe, legal, and rare, right? Rare was a big component of that. That is gone now. That moderation is gone. They have gone completely radical on this issue, to the extent that you had that really awful shout your abortion movement on the left. When you had the Dobbs case being argued in front of the Supreme Court, you had abortion activists from the left taking abortion pills in front of the Supreme Court. There is nothing moderate about this party anymore. It is not safe, legal, and rare. It is like they want to force abortion on everyone. And it's that is just a remarkable shift in a matter of, 20 years or so, just 2 decades. And that's what we're dealing with now from the left.
And so, I think people need to realize, our viewers, our listeners need to realize that, there's no longer that broad median. Like you're driving down the interstate and you got a median. If you kind of slip off a little bit, you're in the median, you're okay. It's kind of that middle ground, safety ground. This is a 4-lane highway going opposite directions, and there's nothing separating. If we careen off just a little bit, it is a head-on collision. And so I think this is a call to Christians, to conservatives, that we have to be informed, we have to be involved, that every election, I think, going forward is the most important election that we've ever had, because it only takes one election to take, quoting Secretary Becerra in a recent setting on Capitol Hill, to take us down that rat hole that this administration wants to take us down.
Yeah, there is no, well, I might agree with this party on some things and not on others. It is, if you care about cultural issues, if you care about values issues, if you care about, basic human dignity and life, it is a binary choice for you at this point. If there's Democrats who literally want to impose abortion politics on your 5-year-old, not to mention gender ideology, not to mention the host of other things, they're still persecuting nuns. Forcing nuns to buy birth control, right? This is not a party of moderation on any question. This is not even a party of cultural consensus anymore. And so I think it really is a binary choice on questions like this. You're voting Republican or you're voting Democrat. There's no in between. There's no moderation. And Joe Biden has been a proxy for that question. His career, I think, really reflects how the Democratic Party has evolved on this.
Well, I would broaden that even a little bit more. If you want an economy that is thriving and you don't want to pay $4.50 a gallon for gasoline, it's a binary choice, because when you're embracing this green agenda and you're worshiping creation more than the creator, you're going to end up with policies like this that hit each and every one of us. Rachel Bovard, great to talk with you. Great piece, very insightful. I love these kind of things that actually go back, connect all the dots. It's not just hyperbole. It's fact, and it shows how this president and this Democratic Party has gone so far and hard to the left. Always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Tony.